the advice that people gave made sense. At that point in time, these were good things to actually pay attention to and have a better financial life if you listened. Things change and generations don't. Most of us are supposed to get our information from our parents. There's actually some, not regulations, but unwritten rules where school is not supposed to teach you finances. We could debate why another time. But if you're supposed to learn from your parents, and this is how math works, 99% of us aren't in the 1%, which means 99% of our parents aren't in the 1%. So the majority of us get our advice from people who aren't extremely wealthy. So if that advice is coming from people who mean well, intend well, but don't have the experience to give that advice, it usually starts off as kind of a bad position to get the advice from. But I'm going to start with some of the ones that won't make you hate my guts. And 3 to 5 minutes into the video, I'm going to get to some where there will be some head shaking, some keyboard commandos will want to lash out. But I'm going to speak from my perspective on some advice that people are giving that is really bad and has changed and doesn't make sense anymore. So the most vanilla, safe ones that I can talk about is people saying that you need to save money in order to become wealthy. Most of us, if you watch my content, kind of know that saving is a really bad idea. It's a step in the process. You need to save so that you can invest and put the money to work. But there was a time where it was actually good advice to just say, save money, buy a CD, put it in a high interest saving account. I mean, it was 30 or 40 years ago when mortgage interest rates were 18 to 20, but savings accounts could be 8 and 9%. And I remember my brother, who's 8 years older than me, getting CDs at 11%. If you can get 11% return by just sticking money in an account, it's actually kind of good advice. Still not quite as good as real estate because you get the compound effect of the interest, the cash on cash return, the appreciation on multiples of what you invest, the principal pay down, and the tax benefit. So it didn't quite still come up to real estate. But at the time, when there wasn't a thing called YouTube University, and your only access to most real estate investing was upselling sales pitches where you went and listened to somebody who probably was trying to sell you a timeshare, or their strategy is what made them money, not that their strategy, selling their strategy was what made them money, not the actual strategy itself. So I understand at the time it made sense for somebody to say, you need to save, continue to save, set aside a certain amount of your own money, and eventually you'll be rich. Inflation is currently destroying even high interest saving accounts. Because of all the bank craziness that's going on, put my money where my mouth is. I actually went into my one primary bank where I had over $250,000, and I took out the extra and I deposited $250,000 into a different institution. And yes, there was probably a way to make different accounts in one institution. They tried to keep my money in there, but I'm more comfortable spreading out that for the FDIC insurance because I stay at large institutions because I primarily bank online and I want good apps and web access. So I don't go to smaller banks that might have something like DIF insurance, DIF insurance, where they insure beyond the $250,000. So I have that money in the account. That money is losing value every day to inflation. Even if I'm going to get 3 or 4% in the saving account that I moved it to, inflation is still 6 to 8%. It's fluctuating. So saving, Robert Kiyosaki gets this right. Savers are losers. The second one, and this is not an attack on Dave Ramsey followers because Dave Ramsey puts out some great advice. He's got 3 steps I really like. First, second, and seventh. Those are the steps I think everybody should be doing. Stuff in the middle, he kind of loses me as an investor. But this one is talked about often when it comes to advice that used to make sense that doesn't currently. Pay off your mortgage early. There are several strategies. You can make a bi-weekly, is that the way it's said? Every 2 weeks, you can make a payment instead of once a month. So that if you did it once a month, you make 12 payments. If you do it every 2 weeks, since there are 52 weeks, you're making 26 payments instead of 24 if you did it twice a month. So you're making a full extra payment to half payments. And you cut down duration of the length of your mortgage. But primarily, you reduce the end when the amortization is in your favor. There's the take out a home equity line of credit and attack your mortgage with it that way and pay it off even sooner. Throw piles of cash at it, make larger payments. One of the biggest mistakes I've made was pay off a property. I'm saying this now because it's bad advice now, but there was a time, just like saving, when mortgage payments, mortgage interest rates were 18 to 20%. So if you can get a return of 18 to 20%, like you can if you pay down credit cards, it was good advice. There was a time it made sense to pay your mortgage off early. And that's the problem, is our grandparents, our parents, the generation before us lived in a time, had that real life experience of they were more financially better off if they paid off their mortgage. Someone who pays off a mortgage is not in a better financial position now than somebody who has the same amount of equity in an investment property. If you pay off your mortgage, you were already going to get the appreciation on that property. You were, if you didn't do it early, already going to get the principal pay down on that property. So those were already going to happen. If you take the money that you were going to pay extra on your mortgage and instead put it in the investing account that's going to buy the next rental property, you are going to add cash flow. You are going to add appreciation that you wouldn't get from just the first property. You are going to add principal pay down that you wouldn't get from just the first property. You're going to have all of these benefits of added real estate to your portfolio. If you invest in stocks and in your 20s or 30s, you take the money that you would put towards your real estate and pay down something that's at 3 or 4%. In the stock market, getting an annual average return on a well-diversified index portfolio of 10% over a long enough duration, you're cutting out millions of your net worth over the few decades that it's going to take to get that compound interest to take effect. So it made sense to pay off your mortgage when the interest rate was above 10, maybe 15%. It does not make sense to pay it off early when it's below 5. So these are kind of the ones that I don't think are going to irritate some people. There will be some people, keyboard commandos, that are kind of going to come at me and say, well, I want my mortgage paid off because I'll be more secure. That's the last thing I want. I don't care about having a mortgage paid off. It doesn't improve my cash flow. It doesn't improve my financial position to have a mortgage paid off. The amount of equity in that property can have an impact, but having it paid off means nothing to me. So to slightly start angling towards those ones that are going to irritate people, people used to give the advice that your house is an asset. I grew up in the era, the Gen Xers, where we heard your home is going to be the largest asset you ever purchase. So it was decent advice because we didn't have access to, you can invest in alternate things that might actually be worth more than your house. And your house in 1997 was pointed out by Robert Kiyosaki in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, isn't an asset because it's not putting money in your pocket. Your house where you live, if you're paying to live there, is a liability because it's costing you money. It's a Schrodinger's asset and liability. It can be either one. If you take a deeper look at the numbers and you realize somebody's renting out by the room or purchasing a small multifamily, living in one unit and renting out the others, their house where they live can be an asset. But the narrative that we were given was buy a big house with as much debt as you can, pay off the debt as fast as you can, and now you own a big asset that you are paying for. That is a liability taking money out of your pocket. Howdy, Brian. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Yes, Dion's ranting again. Keeping it nice, though. I started nice. The first, what are we now? 9 minutes in, I've been nice. I'm going to start getting to the ones that kind of irritate me. I'm not there yet. These are the ones in the middle. The advice is your house is an asset. And they'll quote things like, at retirement age, the average net worth of somebody who owns a home is $221,000. And the average net worth of somebody who rented a house is $6,800. So it sounds like owning a house gives you a better net worth. Sure. On an average, if you sell your house or do another refinance or HELOC to take the equity out, your net worth doesn't mean that that is money that you can live on unless you add debt to the asset, sell the asset. So I'm saying your house is not an asset. It can be, but for most people, it's not. So here's the ones that are going to start to irritate people. You hear The advice of back in the dinosaur days, people would say all debt is bad. And the majority of people said all debt is bad, especially when most debt had really high interest rates. In the last 10 to 20 years, not everybody, and not even half, but some people are starting to understand that there is good debt. There was a time where the advice of all debt is bad made sense, because before the 70s, before I was born, we didn't really have 30-year fixed rate debt. We had variable rate debt. We have variable rate debt in most of the world. The United States is actually one of the only countries that has fixed rate mortgages. There are others, but that's pretty rare. So debt can be bad if you're not handling it right. Advice now is there is good debt. That has shifted. If you are not using good debt, it's going to take you decades longer to reach financial freedom than somebody who uses good debt correctly, doesn't over leverage, doesn't get adjustable rates, make sure that the debt generates more money than it costs to have it. We'll go a little bit step further on the ones that are going to irritate people. A lot of people say credit cards are bad. I'll go with credit cards are a tool. If you use a tool wrong, it's going to hurt you. If you use a tool right, it's going to help you. If you have no self-control, don't pick up a chainsaw, right? Don't pick up a dangerous tool if you have no self-control. If you have control and you can do something like I do and pay your credit card off daily, never carry a balance. So I'm never going to be paying any interest on the balance on my credit card. I don't let myself spend more money than I should just because it's convenient to use a credit card. So those are the two ways that self-control can matter. First, never carrying a balance. Second, not spending more than you should just because it's easy. But what are the bonuses from using a credit card? Extra insurance when you rent a car, easier to dispute a charge, protection. It's not like a debit card. It's not tied directly to your account. It might take you longer to get that money back if you get all of it back at all. I haven't even got to travel points, cash back, rewards. You're going to spend money on certain things anyway. If it's going to cost you the same, use a credit card and get some cash back. Credit cards are a tool that can help. Okay, we're at 12 minutes. I'm going to be getting to the questions here shortly. Here's the ones that are going to irritate people. This is advice that probably at one point made sense. And then from my unique perspective, this is going to irritate people. So if you want to come at me in the comments, feel free. I have thick skin. It surrounds all the fat, but I have a lot of skin. Go for it. I don't get offended easily. The dumbest advice we get now that we used to get, that used to be good advice, but is bad, horrible, terrible advice now. I don't think I'm ready to do that one yet. I should do the softer ones first. Are you guys ready for the mean ones? I'll do the mean one and one of the mean ones, and then I'll go back to the soft ones. We used to tell everybody, go to college, and it was good advice. Yeah, I should have waited. In the last decade, people have understood, studies have actually been done, but that show it is not financially beneficial to go to college. People with a four-year degree, the debt that comes with it, aren't on average making more money than people without a degree. There are times where the degree matters. If you want to work in a field that requires a degree, sure. But if somebody is telling you, you need to go to college so that you can be more successful, that's not how it works. It might make you more successful in the field specifically that needs the degree. And I know the narrative is not going to change. I had a conversation with my daughter's principal, with my daughter when she was in high school, and I was very proud of her, but she still had 2 years to go, so she should have not said what she did, but I was really proud of what she said. And this is information from the American Education Association. So you can look this up. And this is a study of 2015 that 100% of children that attend school are told to go to college. It's just part of the narrative. They're actually in an environment with 30 kids with only one person who stands out, the teacher. The teacher gets to make the rules, choose which rules matter, which one they're going to pay attention to. They are the center of attention. They are the only person in the room with real authority. So a lot of kids in that 5th and 6th grade age want to be teachers. Yeah, it's most of them. Oh, I want to be a teacher because it's the one thing that they've had the most exposure to. They don't get to go to work every day and see their parents at work, but they go to school 5 days a week and see the teacher at work. And so a lot of the kids at that age want to be teachers. Then later it shifts. One of my daughters wanted to be a teacher until later she kind of understood how money worked and her mind changed. But to become a teacher, you had to not only finish school, but you can't just usually finish school and become a teacher. You have to finish school, attend school to become a teacher, and then be a teacher. So kids are exposed to, you've got to go to school to be the thing that you want to be when you're fifth or sixth grade. So 100% of kids are told to go to school. And with this currently happening, 15% of high school graduates continue on to a four-year degree. Now, a significantly larger number of people start college, but 15% complete and get a four-year degree. With every kid being told you have to go to college, 15% finish a four-year degree. So the four-year degrees actually run a lot of the state level information that's shared through WorkSource or your American Job Centers, and they will never reduce the amount of students who are told you need to go to college, because everyone being told you have to go to college, they get 15% that continue on to a four-year degree, who are now not making more than the people who didn't go to college and either got office experience or developed a trade. HVAC, welding, plumbing, electrical, CDL, all of the different trades that make significantly more money with less time training, less time spent getting student loans. And it's not the cost of tuition. It's the student loans where people say, I'm going to borrow a bunch of money to pay for school. While I go to school, I need to focus on my grades, because grades matter, which they don't. It's the other advice that used to matter, but doesn't now. No one's ever asked to see my report card, but they do ask to see a financial statement when you go to get a loan. So the people borrow money to pay for their life while they're in school. Housing, food, those expenses. That creates debt to get that degree that doesn't often pay more than you could get if you took a 4-week course and got a CDL. And I hate to call him out by name, but my son is an example of this. He went to college, got a full academic scholarship, cost very little money out of our pocket for his debt. But even the time he spent in college cost him years that he could have been working, got a job at PayPal, was running a division, and ultimately had to get his CDL. My graduation gift to him was a CDL so that he can get a job and actually make enough money to pay off all the student loans. The degree didn't do it. The trade did. So that's one of the advice that used to matter and now doesn't. It's bad advice now. It's not go to college to be financially successful. That's bad advice. Go to college if it's the degree you need to work in the field that you really have passion to work in. Great advice. Next thing is, we used to give advice that investing was risky. I think it was good advice. Finding the information on how to invest was very difficult. Things that would come out in print, in books, would be months old. Now there are people that are actually watching online daily activities with companies and making decisions on what to invest in and what to avoid. What legislation is changing or pending changing that you can actually go online and see a bill that can infect is probably the right way to say it, can affect the asset that you're looking at investing in your local area. One last thing to wrap up, because I see some chats coming up here on the college thing, and I don't want to look at, because I don't know if people are agreeing with me or if I'm pissing people off, but I want to piss some more people off. I founded a nonprofit. You can check it out at hiddenjobs.org. It is now run by the new president of the school that I retired from last year. We had memorandums of agreement with over 1,200 employers where we did job placement assistance with them. So in Washington State alone, there's over 6,000 registered transportation companies. We did job placement in all of the non-driving jobs. This was my idea, my baby. I grew it. I gave the nonprofit to the school when I retired. HR, IT, operations, logistics, forklift, every position you can imagine outside of the truck, we help people find jobs with those trucking companies. One of the predominant things that those companies asked for when placing people in those positions, no BS, no degree. 1,200 employers, there were a few that wanted people with degrees for key positions. But the majority, no matter the position, management, HR, IT, didn't matter. They would say, we want an IT cert. We want at least 2 years office experience to work in our HR position, but not a degree, because a degree comes in with education that's several years old, outdated based on what's going on now. And we do not want somebody who can sit in a classroom for 4 years, rack up a bunch of debt, and then need a job. We want somebody who's worked in the environment and will learn things the way we do it. That's going to irritate some people, but that was my experience. It was easier to take an E4 getting out of the military, who barely made it through high school to get into the military, a $60,000 to $90,000 a year job in a non-driving position with a trucking company, than it was to get an officer getting out who had a degree. That was a nightmare. And that's just the military side. People that weren't from the military that came in and used our nonprofit, it was very difficult to get anybody who has a degree a position. Off of that one, on to the next one. Advice that used to make sense is get out of debt before you invest. There's three things that tie into this. Saving will make you wealthy, used to be good advice. Pay off your mortgage, used to be good advice. Get out of debt before you invest, used to be good advice, because interest rates were above 10% for most debt. It's not now. The way I did it is I focused on debt that was either adjustable rate, so anything that was on a credit card, or anything that where the rate could adjust, that was above 6%. I picked that as an arbitrary number. It could be anywhere that you want on the scale, but I picked anything above 6% and focused to pay that off, while simultaneously, at the same time, if Matt's watching, saved half the money for my first house hack. The debt that was below 6%, I made the minimum payments on until the income snowball kicked in, and then I let my assets take care of that debt. So if I didn't invest for the assets, I would still be working on paying off bad debt that I had that I didn't know about until the divorce, if I didn't focus on investing before I was out of debt. And then the last one that I'll wrap up before I get to the questions, and tonight I'm hoping to get to all of the questions. I have an hour and a half. This is the second Tuesday of the month, and the Tacoma FI Facebook group meets. Tonight we are meeting at the Rose Cafe in Spanaway. So if you're going to be there, hope to see you there. So I have to cut out at 5:30. So I should have set an alarm. So the last thing I want to wrap up with is the last one that I seem to irritate a bunch of people with, and I saved it for last for that reason. Retirement accounts. They used to be great advice. So the quickest Cliff Notes version was, this country, the United States where I live, used to be a farmland, more farmland than it was cities. And the idea was you created enough offspring to work on the farm so that when you got so old that you couldn't work anymore, your kids would take over. And then we started having factories, the end of the 18th century. Ford's, Rockefellers, the what do they call it, the Industrial Revolution. And factories needed people to come from the fields in to work for the factories. But how do you tell people, come work for us? Because then you don't have any kids that are going to take over your farm when you're older and you won't be able to retire. They come up with pensions. And they said, if you work for us for a certain number of years, and the life expectancy was around 47, we'll pay for you a fixed rate pension until you die. That lasted for a while, became insolvent because life expectancies became higher and profit margins became thinner. So we came out with the 401k program. It's not fixed rate. It's you put in an amount, we'll match an amount, which we actually just take away from your wages and we put into that. So it feels like you're getting free money, but you could have went to work for a company that doesn't have a retirement account and just got the money in your wages. And so you'll invest that and hope you live on hopium to hit the retirement age of old and then retire. So that's the bad advice. First, retirement accounts are bad advice now because they are not fixed pensions. They're only based on what you put in there. People are learning in the last couple of years they don't always perform or trend in an upward trajectory. And second, that you have to retire when you're old. The whole point of retirement accounts is you're going to be 59 and a half before you use that money or pay a penalty. It's behind a paywall. How many times have you clicked on a website because you want to read an article or something and you see it's a paywall and you just get out of there? Why don't people do that with their 401k retirement plans? The tax benefits of investing in real estate are actually better than retirement plans. So the advice used to make sense. Work, have longevity at a company, hit that pension. Studies have shown in the last few years that people that change companies every 2 to 3 years make significantly more than people who stay at one company for a long time. And pensions are becoming less and less. Even the states, municipalities, teachers unions, there are some that are filing bankruptcy or paying 70 or 80% of the pension, so it's not even a guaranteed fixed amount anymore. The bad advice used to be trust the government or your employer to take care of your retirement. When's the last time we saw an article of when Social Security becomes insolvent or starts to pay a percentage of what they should? So that is also bad advice. You should take control of your retirement Figure out a way. That's why we're in the financial independence retire early community. The average person can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. So I'll wrap up by saying retirement accounts are horrible advice unless you have no investing strategy. If you are not going to start and grow a business where you can put the money to work and make a better return than a retirement account, because with a retirement account, you are hoping to retire old, you're hoping to retire broke, so you're in a lower tax bracket. You're going to live on a lot of hopium there versus investing in something that's going to generate cash flow, make work optional, so that decades before you could retire at the normal age, you can choose to work a job you want, whatever the money is, or you can be extremely super lazy like I am and retire and never work again in your life. And then I see Brandon. Howdy. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. No question. I appreciate your personal story and your simple, concise strategy. Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for clarifying that there wasn't a question, because I always am concerned that I might miss one. So hopefully I've helped people think that nothing that I said is concrete or applies to everyone. But there is something in that advice that you've probably heard from somebody that you thought applied to you, but maybe isn't the best thing to do. An example is right now, if you have kids, are you telling them they have to go to school? Are you telling them college is their only answer? Are you saying that college could be a good choice if you choose a career field where it's required? And then somehow magically know that in 12 years, when they finish elementary school and high school and get to college and are in college for 4 years, that field's still going to require a degree? Let's flash back to 15 years ago when everybody was saying, I'm going to be a programmer, because programming can never be replaced. Dock workers can be replaced with drones. We have robots in warehouses loading trucks. We have autonomous trucks that are probably 20 to 30 years away from being all over the roads as a normal thing. And then the chat AI comes out. And now there's one coming out that's 500 times the size, and coding is becoming easier and easier for AI to do. Whatever field you're telling your kid they're probably going to need a degree in, as they get closer, encourage your kids, your nephews, your neighbors' kids, to really think if that's a good investment or not to go to school. And just because their teachers went to school doesn't mean that they should. Dividend Dave, howdy, thank you for that. Dion Talk is my retirement account. It pays the best dividend Daves. It does. Nice. Thank you, Dave, for that. I appreciate it. So now I'm going to get to the questions, and I'm going to see if I irritated anybody. And feel free, if I irritated you, leave a comment, because I'm not always right. I just know that I was able to reach financial freedom because I was ignoring most of these things that are advice that people used to give. I actually said one of the biggest mistakes I made was paying off a mortgage. Had I not paid off that mortgage, I would have more rentals, a larger net worth, more cash flow, more financial stability. It was a mistake. Ninja Vanish, howdy. Dividend Dave. Bang, darn ninja, ruined it for Dave. Then the Yoder, going to catch up later. Thank you for that. Howdy, Lauren from Tacoma, and it is sunny. Yes, I was trying to do videos this morning with the three amigos, and nature's ring light was blinding me. So you can actually catch that in that video. All-Nighter Hider, howdy. How's it going? Let's see, are there questions? All-Nighter Hider was going to type that saving made sense before we were completely severed from the gold standard. Yeah. Early 70s too, before inflation really took off, before we were on the gold standard. Yeah, so 1971, when that changed, saving might have made more sense. Dividend Dave to Hider. Follow the real estate road. Follow the RA road. Oh, nice. The ominous Hider of Oz. And All-Nighter Hider, I need to make a video of this framing job during the day with light. I'll do that tomorrow. Nice. Let me know when you get that done. I actually have some videos. This is probably going to be one of the months where I've had the most activity as a landlord. And so let me explain that there are a lot of people who don't want to be landlords because of how much work it takes. January, 2 texts. February, 4 texts. This week, I've had more interactions than at any point. I had a water heater that started leaking. So as a landlord, when it sucked to have a water heater that starts leaking, like that's a nightmare. You don't want to do that. You want to work 50 to 60 hours a week in a job that pays you a nice steady paycheck. You do not want to be a landlord because you might have to post it on Thumbtack, get a couple quotes, have the hot water heater replaced, get a couple pictures that the work is done, and then take money from the account that the tenants put money into every month with the amount from rent that's being set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, and pay and give a tip to the person who did the work. So maybe 4 or 5 emails and one, what did I use to pay it? I think it was Zelle. It's either Zelle or Venmo, because then I went with Millennial Mike. So this isn't landlord related, but I went with Millennial Mike to each one of my properties, and we recorded some video in front of each one. And I realized, well, it's the end of winter. The leaves are gone, but I could see the moss on the roof. So I came back. Again, I went on Thumbtack. Actually, this is how this transpired. I'm going to make a video on this one, so you get the Cliff Notes version here. I noticed there was some moss on some of the roofs. Now, half the roofs look great, half the roofs not so much. So I, the phones are always listening. And because me and Millennial Mike talked about the moss on the roof, I got ads on Facebook. Moss removal. Here's a guy. Here's a picture. Before, during, and after. It looks good. So I reach out and I say, hey, how much would it cost? I've got the duplex in this area to do the roof. And they sent back a nice email of it's $7.95, but this includes cleanup, gutters, drains, moss treatment, and then cleanup after we're done. So it looked like a whole bunch. And my brain said, well, I've usually done this myself. I get up there basically with a couple of tools. I put some construction grade black trash bags on around the thing, knock it all off, clean it up. But I'm lazy, I'm retired. I don't want to do that this year. $7.95, is that worth my time to go up there? So I probably got 3 or 4 roofs to do, half the portfolio. I have 16 units, 7 properties. So it's about half the properties. And I think I should follow my own advice. So I opened the Thumbtack app and I put out there a job. So you post a job, basically, this is what I want done. And then it tells you who you can send it to. So I sent it to, I think, 4 different companies. First quote that came back was like 3 something. And then I got 4 other quotes. So a total of 4 quotes between 200 and 220. And they did everything that was listed out in the Facebook ad. So because I went to the Facebook ad, got a quote, was thinking I could almost click on this and go for it. And then I thought, well, I should do what I say that I do. And I went to the Thumbtack app. And so now I've had 3 of the roofs done. One of them is on a street called Sacramento Street in a town, but it's in Washington. And the guy that set up to do it did the other 2, but didn't do that one because he was like, I don't work in Sacramento. So I had to point out, that's the name of the street. And now it's getting done. Great work, looks good, good price. So I was able to do the roofs, add a tip. So that was like 5 or 6 emails, going back and getting the quotes. And then every time he finished one, I made a payment. This guy, I think, is on Venmo. And I just make the payment every time he's done. And he sends me pictures. So there'll be that video coming soon. For $200, I was getting on my own roof and doing it myself and then taking care of the cleanup. I'm stupid. Aaron, howdy. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend, I think. I have to miss the live today, church project going on, but just thought I'd quickly step in to say hi. I fly to Seattle tomorrow evening, arriving a little early for the Robin Hood event. So you fly here tomorrow. If you're watching this in Futureland, Aaron, reach out. I will pin a comment with my email down below. I think you've already emailed me. Just, yeah, let me know when you're in town. Thank you again for the super chat, Brian Beck. I appreciate it. All-nighter header. More people need to understand what negative rates are. Yes, absolutely. And Brian Beck follows his super chat with, should I get an LLC before I start investing? Because I was on a rant. And everyone here, I think, knows why that would make me rant. Don't poke the Dion, Brian. Nice. The goat of the Illuminati. I like it, Angel. I think that was better than the time you called me the cabrita, which is the goat, right? Specifically the little girl goat, but still. Bolo, Howdy. Fear has me angsty to pay off my 3.1 and 4.1 mortgages. Angel R. So if it's fear, if you're losing sleep, right, there is no one right way. There's a right way for you. If it actually makes sense to you to pay it off and you don't want to have the next deal and appreciation on that deal and principal pay down on that deal and the reset of a depreciation schedule on the new deal. Was that sarcastic enough? Yes. Go ahead and do that. If it makes you like the sleep well at night account, Swan account, I have a whole bunch of money in the bank. It's stupid. I shouldn't do that. I should be buying another property. I should buy one with a mortgage, buy one, pay it all cash, or pay off the debt, right? It makes more sense than the money sitting in the bank. I'm not doing the right things either. I am doing what makes me able to sleep well at night. So that's what you should do too. Keith, howdy. I thought this was going to go in another direction. So when you lay your head to sleep tonight, is your money making money? Mine is. Yes. I thought you were going to say, so when you lay your head to sleep tonight, do you get a crick in your neck from your lumpy mattress full of cash? Is my response every time somebody says they hate landlords. I just say, I'm going to have trouble falling to sleep tonight on that lumpy mattress. I need to make that short. I should have done it today. I had all the money. Angel R. Dion, what do you think of a 1.9 auto loan? Is it fixed rate? Is it fixed rate debt? How long is it? Was the car, did you pay more for the car than it was worth? Is it underwater? Like there's a bunch of things there more than the interest rate. I do like low interest rate debts. If it's fixed and it can't adjust, there's no reason to pay it off when it's that low. You'd have a better return taking the money. And right now you can go to Wells Fargo, open up an account with that if it has enough money in it, get over 3%, and there are banks that are way better. You can get over a 3% return on a savings account, right? And $525 if you leave the money in there for 3 months. You're going to get a better return putting it in a saving account than paying off a 1.9% interest auto loan. If the interest is low enough, sometimes it actually makes sense to buy a car with a loan. The problem is, I've talked about this a couple of times, so I won't beat this actual dead horse, but we spend more money when we make it easy, right? If you had to actually carry gold around, would you spend a lot of it all the time? If you had to actually just carry cash, would you spend it all the time? If you have to use a debit card, you can only spend your money that's in your account. So we use a credit card. Now you can spend future money. If you're getting a loan to buy a car and it's more car than you can afford because you're going to make payments and it's low interest rate and you're buying way more car than you should, so your payments are still too high, that can be a mistake. So the 1.9% isn't the good or the bad part. It's, did you buy the car that was appropriate with your income, assets, resources, and goals? I was like Millennial Mike and Lumberjack Landlord, and I had 15, 20-year-old cars. I had my last Jeeps were 92 and 97. So I had a Wrangler and a Cherokee. That was the age bracket of vehicles I would drive because I could work on them. Since 2018, there was a couple of years where I went brand new. Most of the time now. So now it's a couple of years old. And I think that the next vehicle I'm going to buy, 2025, is probably was built last year. So I'll buy a 2022 and 2025. So even though financial freedom can drive anything I want to, that's not what matters to me. Time freedom matters to me more than what vehicle I'm driving. The FOMC is full of tools. Nice. T. Adams, love the credit card points. Yeah, it's the one thing I don't do that the Graham Stephan advocates for that I probably should. I don't churn credit cards. I don't do the zero down interest or the zero interest for time periods. I don't do the credit card points. I just do cash back. I like the Bank of America credit card because it gives you 3% back on whichever category you choose that month. So I look at which month, what am I going to spend more money on this month, and make that the category. I think the smallest month I've had in 2022 that I got cash back was like $120. So it's usually 120 to 280, somewhere in there. Howdy, Stephen. Hit that like button, neighbors. What was the thing I said on Matt's today? If you want to be wealthy, hit the like button. The universe is watching, and it knows. It'll know if you did or not. I think it's better if I say that for someone else's channel. All-nighter hider. Degrees are only worth it in fields that are not saturated with degrees. That too. Key thinker. So we are supposed to compound time for ourselves. Yes. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that I've compounded time in financial freedom. I talked about this the other day, and Mark, the financial firefighter, reached out and said, like I said, Todd Baldwin had a moment of genius the other day. Mark said this was one that he liked. I've developed a strategy where people can live more, but not longer. But a lot of people focus on eat really well, no non-GMO, natural, organic, certain exercise routine, which, you know, if you're in a dinosaur age like me, you remember the guy that used to jog all the time, make jog videos, did jogging on TV, and he died while jogging, Jim Fix. So sometimes exercise isn't the answer, but the idea is a lot of people want to live really healthy and really treat their body like a temple, so that instead of dying at 80, they can live till 90. Well, those last 10 years are going to suck no matter what, right? No matter, a healthy 80-year-old is not enjoying life as much as a decently in shape 50-year-old. So my idea for living more, not longer, is reaching financial freedom at a younger age. The younger you can do it, the more you amplify your time. The idea being the average person works 8 to 10 hours a day, sleeps 6 to 9 hours a day, so average out of 8, commutes 30 minutes each way, so an hour a day. So the average person has 4 or 5 hours left at the end of the day that are theirs, usually filled with catching up with your spouse, your kids, binging Netflix, whatever it is. You get 4 or 5 hours. That's the average person. If you can reach financial freedom and you make work completely optional, you're still going to sleep. You're still going to have to do the chores, the laundry, you're still going to work out. You're still going to lose that kind of time. But the average person that reaches financial freedom and does what I did and retired last year, I retired at 52. So it's not like I retired at 30, which is entirely possible. But at 52, I retired. And now I have about 15 hours a day, every day, that are mine. I'm not stupid, but I could catch up with a spouse. I could hang out with my kids. I could do all of these things with that 15 hours. So in the next year, in a 12-month period, I'm going to live 3 times more than the person who's trapped in a job. So my goal is to get as many people here right now watching this to that financial freedom. You might retire. You might quit the job you have and go to one that you enjoy so that you can live at that job and not worry about how much it pays. Live more, not longer. So you're liberal. I have a friend who has a liberal arts degree. It's a safe bet. He showed me his degree the other day. I knew he had one. I was shocked. It was like, liberal arts? Really? Gender studies was packed? He was too old to do that. But he's actually used it. I think he got a teaching degree in addition to it, and then he taught English in another country. And so he's enjoyed the benefits of that, but he is currently a truck driver, where with his CDL, he generates enough money to have paid off all of his loans, is buying his own house, just waiting for the crash to buy his first rental. So sometimes even knowing somebody who has done this isn't enough motivation to get on the property ladder and take action, no matter how much I badger him. All-nighter hider. Collaboration is great in the workforce, but called cheating in schools. Yes, that is absolutely. It's a direct Robert Kiyosaki quote. In school, if you cheat off your neighbor, you get in trouble. As an adult, if you collaborate with your neighbor, you guys can both be successful. Teachers are computer programmers because the computer has no choice but to learn. Nice. I think the thing that teachers have to teach kids now is how to ask the right question. That's going to be the shift in teaching in the next 5 years. That's my prediction. I don't normally do. All-nighter hider. Professors are just people that profess. Rob, you missed the rant. I'm very sorry. It was really nice, though. The first 9 minutes, I talked about things that I don't think irritated people. And then at the 9-minute mark, I talked about some things that I probably lost some subscribers. To and Fro Global, howdy. Thank you. I appreciate you being here too. I'll note how big companies are training employees now, so they're not relying on a third party to train prospective employees. Good point. Samoan Island Curl. Howdy. Experience over degrees. Totally agree. I think I would want a physician, maybe a psychologist. I don't know about a tax pro. I think exposure to the tax system would be, but as an accountant, I don't know if the degree would matter as much to me as the experience. But there are some things where the degree kind of matters. Nicole, howdy. We've been tossing around using some of the student loan money we have set aside for part of our down payment money. What are people's opinions? Interest rate is 6%-ish. So right now your student loans are on forbearance. I don't know if that's what they actually call it, but student loans are not being paid currently. So you could be banking the money. What I would make sure is that if they turn the switch back on, are your finances set up to be able to make the payments? That would be important. My other problem with student loans is the adjustable interest rate aspect of that. So it's one of the type of debts where if actually you need the number 6% or higher, that was one of the ones I would focus on payoff. Not 100% of my saving, 50%. 50% of the saving rate would go to paying off high interest rate or variable interest rate debt. The other half would go towards my next house hack or my next investment property, so that I'm at least starting to build towards the income snowball, so that the income snowball can tackle the debt faster. Samoan Island Curl. If you had only $10,000 to start real estate investing, what would you do? How would you start your real estate investing career? So it's a good question. Whether you have 10,000 or 500,000 in the bank, for me, the situation starts the same. So 10,000 is a good, nice round number. If you have 10,000 and you don't have credit card debt, right? So that's the first thing, is I would actually focus on getting rid of credit card debt. At least half of your savings rate should go to that. For me, it took saving up enough to do an owner-occupied down payment on a duplex. Now, this could be a house with an ADU or a house where you rent out rooms, depending on your level of comfort of living with people in shared space. Anyone who had young kids, so I went with a duplex with garages in the middle, literally separated by 3 different walls between us and different driveways. So the first step to getting started in real estate, I talk often about these 6 steps. The first step is learning how to save. The most important thing when it comes to learning how to save is not eliminating or cutting down on expenses. It's increasing income. What are you doing right now to make more money? Is it overtime, changing careers, changing companies to work in the same field for a better pay, learning a skill to make you more attractive to your employer so you can be paid more, starting and growing a side hustle or complete business on the side, some way to increase your income, so at the same time not increasing the amount of money that you're spending, right? So avoid life creep. For me, that was overtime, climbing the corporate ladder, working for demotions. I was an instructor at the CDL school. I was demoted all the way down to president of the company, so I did that over years. But I also still played World of Warcraft and sold things online for a monthly income as a side hustle, because I was a single parent with 3 kids. This helped me kind of stay around the house with them. Save the down payment to house hack. Once house hacking, I reduced how much I was paying for housing. So increase the savings and then reduce or eliminate that largest expense. I would suggest to get started in real estate, house hacking. It doesn't mean living with roommates, right? I've had roommates before I was an investor. I actually house hacked my way through the police academy because it was so far away that I'd have 10 to 12-hour days at the academy. And then instead of driving home for over an hour, I could sleep in the parking lot at the academy. But I had rented a room out to a young couple at my house and for free. So I wasn't even making money, but they provided 24-hour-a-day live-in daycare and didn't charge me. So that was my form of house hacking to get through that. But that, to me, wasn't when I was investing. I was doing that just to be able to get through the academy. At the duplex, and so right now I'm house hacking a 4-plex. I have seen the neighbors 2 or 3 times in the last year. Totally. That's how many times. So you don't have to house hack to get started, but you asked me for how I would start my real estate career. That's exactly how I did it. I would do it again. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time says one of his biggest regrets is that he didn't house hack. He would have been exponentially farther along in his real estate career than he is now. Rob, my wife was a vet on an ostrich farm for a while. I keep telling her giant chicken tried to kill her. Ostriches are mean. Chickens are mean too, though. Can't imagine a 5-foot chicken. Weird bit of knowledge. Traveled to Colombia, and one of the ways you could tell you were in a fancy restaurant when you're out of the cities, I mean, like out of the main cities, was that the restaurants would have chickens walking around. The first one I went to, I was like, there's chicken in here. That's kind of weird for a restaurant. And then the nice waiter explained, natural enemy of the scorpion. Scorpion can't mess with a chicken, and the chickens kill them. So now you're eating in a restaurant that doesn't have scorpions walking around. Chickens were a good thing. All-nighter hider. Retirement accounts make account managers money, not the retirees. They make your employer, the government, and the account managers money, whether you make money or not. The account managers make money whether yours appreciates or loses value. The government makes money off your retirement accounts, right? They are going to tax it at some point. And then your employer gets employee retention. So they make money. Everyone benefiting from your retirement accounts isn't you. Theta Hedge Capital. Howdy, Theta. Experts have expiration dates. That is absolutely true. I totally agree. Rob, what did I buy for $15,000? I don't know if I could say that. I'm not ready to say that yet because it's related to what I'm doing there. So, good question, Rob. Maybe I'll say it in a members only live stream. I didn't go on a date. 15K would never cover a date. All-nighter hider. Work does a body good. Water heaters are really easy to replace. Generally, they are. Dividend Dave. Who wants your duplex? I'm sure there's a few people who would probably like it. Rob Mike is actually at Wave this week doing SWAT training, so he's actually not going to even make it to the local Tacoma FI meetup tonight. He will be, and I was waiting to see if I got a response. I haven't got a response yet. But the Robin Hood Resort, he'll be there this weekend for the Christian and Cody multifamily strategy presentation. 3 hours a month is too much work going back to your 9 to 5. I totally agree. This being a landlord is way too much work. Like I'm trying to think of something that pays, that takes a lot of work to set up. Like the work you're doing right now to watch a video, to take in this content, to understand how do I pick a market? How do I pick a strategy? How do I find a property that's actually not going to bankrupt me? How do I find, screen, place, maintain tenants? How do I find a lease? How do I set all of this up? Like the amount of work that goes in to put this together is the barrier to entry. Going to an interview and being nervous for a few minutes and trying to sell yourself to a company so that they can hopefully turn you into a cog. Because if you are not working to build your dream, you will be hired to build someone else's dream. In that situation, real estate starts to not sound so bad. Should make a short out of that. Jeffrey, howdy. Are you worried about Hemlane being involved with SVB or their operation accounts and the going concern of Hemlane? No, not at all. I might have been for a nanosecond on Saturday before the announcement that not only were they going to guarantee SVB, but they were going to do above the 250,000. They fully are guaranteeing, so I'm not concerned with that. No. So good question. I'm not. I'm trying to think, am I being completely honest? Because I'm 3 properties now on the platform out of 16. So it's not like it hits my whole portfolio. So if it shut down, how impacted would I be? Maybe I'm not concerned because of that. So I'm trying to think now, am I concerned for Hemlane? No, I'm not. Not once the bank was fully funded. Like that's a new change too. I actually went today and took the money out. I had too much money in one account or one bank, spread it out to 2. And then looking back, it's like, oh, they're saying they're going to get rid of the $250,000 limit for FDIC insurance. So maybe I didn't even need to do that. This does mean less depth. Yes, thumbs up. Every time you go diving with a new diver and you ask them if they're okay, right? They go like this and you're like, does he really mean we need to go up? Or are they okay? Price and Pride, $7.95 to clean your roof. No thanks. Yeah, no kidding. But I had not looked into it before. I'd always done it myself, and I was thinking, I'm on a ladder, I'm on a roof, trying to enjoy retirement. It's less than $1,000. There's tens of thousands of dollars sitting in an account that tenants have placed in there for me to do maintenance and stuff. So I was thinking, nah. But then I looked and it's like, oh, that is not a reasonable price. Lazy has a price. Yes. I love that, Rob. Thanks. Dividend Dave, my tenant's daughter's voucher is about to expire. Have the possibility of getting her into the unit. Her mom is also in via doing some fancy contract lease footwork. Advice. Transparency with the housing authority to make sure that everything you're doing is something they are okay with. I don't want to get in trouble with them. I don't want to hurt future relations with them. I don't want to get into a situation where you have to pay back everything that they've given you. That's my advice, is fully transparent with them. What are they comfortable with? If you can make it work, sure. Absolutely. Dividend Dave, was Dion's money in Silicon Valley Bank? No. Uncle Biden says the swans are still swimming. Where is Mike's new triplex? I think it's in Gary, but he hasn't been really specific. We were looking at a 5-plex in a town next to Gary that isn't the worst town in the country by the votes. That fell through, but I'm not sure where his triplex is. Success is a journey. Howdy. Brilliant perspective. This video I will show my future kids. Nice. Awesome. All-nighter hider. Bailouts create more and more. You only live once investing and gambling. So, true. I talked about this on One Rental at a Time today. I'm not sure if the video came out yet or not. I have to look, and because I go back and try to answer every comment that comes in there too. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but I try to get them there too. The problem with bailouts, there's kind of a problem with people going, oh, I could take risk because the bank is protected. To me, the problem with bailouts is the bank can take risks. They can take toxic debt and go and say, this needs backed too. So we had a bank that was primarily startup funded, and it failed. And we had a bank that was primarily crypto oriented, and it failed. And now we've said, it doesn't matter if the bank is diversified, if the bank uses good strategies, if the bank fails, we'll bail them out. That's why I did my kind of rant the other day where I was like, F the banks. Don't bail them out. Don't take tax dollars to back up a bank that made poor decisions. And then that's what we did. Because have you met government? Kenzie, howdy. Hi, Dion and everyone. I hope you're all having a fantastic Tuesday so far. You too. Tom Kine, members for 4 months. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. 4 months now. Nice. We had a pretty good members only this last week where Matt came on and shared. So if you're a member and you didn't get to see that live, go to the channel and look up the members lives. Matt brought in, we went through the whopping 6 properties on the MLS in his buy box. And then we actually looked at some deals that he purchased like before his renovation. He gave some renovation tips on how to make money with some really simple cosmetic things, really simple things that can make it look much better. Rob, degrees are only worth the work you put into them. Nice, I like that. Then Tom, finally getting my place renovated. Awesome. What's completed, ready to make your next purchase? Nice. I'm looking for the next one too, so good luck. I hope we find one. REI Stoners, howdy. Hope to see you tonight. Don't know if you're working or not. Let's say you make a seller financing deal. What percentage do you pay your agents who middleman the terms? The same as they would get if it was a finance deal. I don't want my agents taking any kind of a cut or a shave on their commission. They're probably going to possibly do more work with a seller finance deal with the back and forth and the understanding of the contract than where they just go to their DocuSign, send the document for a regular conventional loan. So it's generally 6% divided between agents. Sometimes I've heard if it goes to one agent, because you only have one agent involved, they might get 5 or 5.5% instead of the full 6. Whatever is normal. That not what the investor wants to hear. Sometimes the investor is like, how can I save money? But that's not one of the things I try to save money on. If you have to save money on the agent's commission, that is not a good deal. Rob, I'm married. I definitely won't be living longer. It's times like these that remind me of what Rob's last words are going to be. Honey, is that loaded? All-nighter hider. My pops is 80. Hard to believe it. He looks like he's in his mid-60s. Nice. Tom Kind, somehow I missed the super chat. I should have seen that. I'm sorry. I'm just going to make sure I'm not missing any others here. How many forms of house hacking can you think of? So that's a great question. And so the problem with house hacking is the videos don't get many views. I have a couple of house hacking videos, and I think people go, yeah, I've heard of it. I know it. So they just don't even click on it. But during so I'm a teaching assistant for the BiggerPockets boot camp. This question kind of came up the other week on house hacking. And the person's knee-jerk reaction when they asked the question, and my response was house hacking, their knee-jerk reaction was, I can't, I got a family. And then the person went on to describe house hacking, their strategy, what they're doing, because it isn't clear what house hacking is. And for most of us, we think, because we've heard like a mantra, reduce or eliminate your largest expense. That is house hacking. So we rent rooms when we're renting. We're totally willing to house hack when we have roommates. It's like we say mentally, I'm okay with you helping me pay someone else's mortgage, but as soon as I own it, don't you dare try to pay my mortgage with me. Right? Once we own it, we don't want roommates. So the form of house hacking that most people talk about is having roommates. You are reducing or eliminating your largest expense. The second form is you have non-shared living space, house with an ADU, house divided into separate areas, built out apartment in the basement, a duplex, triplex, fourplex, all of those ways where you own a house and you're house hacking. That's the next step that most people are aware of. The third step, the one that most people don't even think of, that the true benefit, the power of house hacking, is the lending options. Owner-occupied lending is 3% down conventional for your first purchase, 3.5% down with FHA, 5% down on purchases after you already own a property. So instead of coming up with 20 or 25% down on your deals, you could put down 3 or 5% or 3.5 if you do FHA. And you get the best interest rate. So there's a form of house hacking that I actually suggested this person do, is buy a house because you have a family and you don't want shared living space and you just can't stand the idea of somebody living in an ADU, not attached to your house, but on the same property. Like neighbors, but somehow, since it's inside your barrier, your property barrier, it's disgusting. So you just don't want that. Just buy a house, live in it for a year. Don't commit fraud, actually intend to, and live in there for a year. Rinse and repeat. Save a down payment, do it again. Now, the barrier, if you use FHA or VA, is that they're going to want a reason why because you're not supposed to acquire investment properties with owner-occupied loans, loans that have the intention of being used by owner-occupants. So you have to go with Matt's strategy of fourplex, triplex, duplex, single family, because you're working towards a single family house, and then single family house to a larger single family house, right? But there's other reasons why you can do this too. You can go, the new purchase is closer to work, closer to school, better school district, better neighborhood, has more bedrooms, has more square footage, has a garage, something that you can justify that. But if you go with conventional, like I did, I went from a duplex to a fourplex in the same town, about 10 miles apart, and they didn't ask one question, because they don't care. But you can do owner-occupied, low down payment, best interest rate. So that form of house hacking has no shared space, nobody else living on your property while you live there. It's just that you're going to move a couple of times to do that. So top of the head, that's how many there are. There's probably some more. And thank you, Tom, for the super chat. I appreciate that. All-nighter hider. No one's supposed to know your name except for the time when you were on my channel and when you said hi with your name. So you should have let me know in advance, Clark. Your all-nighter hider image needs some glasses in there. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyder. That's I love that. RAI. That's a good one. Dividend Davina. Simple Rule. Angelina, hi, everyone. Howdy. Keith, what are your favorite motivational books? The Count of Monte Cristo. That is my favorite motivational book. It is the best one on the planet that resonates with me with the main reason to reach financial freedom. This is a person who attained so much wealth that they were able to dedicate the rest of their life to effing over everybody who had ever messed with them. Is the best book ever. Count of Monte Cristo. Been a couple good movie remakes of it, but the book was amazing. Alexander Dumas also wrote like the Three Musketeers, those kind of books. So that's the era that it comes from. What book do I go to for motivation? I really do actually like the 15 Conversations with Real Estate Millionaires by Zuber, where it's 15 different stories of people who had different backgrounds, different goals, different strategies. And in the conversation explains these are the things that mattered. So there's a couple of those that I go to. Don't get the Audible version though. It's horrible. The narrator was terrible. Should never do that again. But I hear he's halfway through the One Rental at a Time book. I like, so Rich Dad Poor Dad's books, the first two, Cash Flow Quadrant and Rich Dad Poor Dad, good for motivation. Once every 10 years or so now, I like to go through and either read or listen to Richest Man in Babylon and Think and Grow Rich, like the literally timeless classics. I'm trying to think of other ones that are motivational. When it comes to real estate, I really like Set for Life by Scott Trench. And then Mindy Jensen and him did a follow-up, and it just has all of the strategies kind of spelt out. So one of the things I like is kind of re-listening to something I know that already works, so it just keeps fresh in my mind. Yeah. So I think Count of Monte Cristo is probably the last thing that people expect to hear when you look at all of the huge list of books that people associate with real estate and investing. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a good question. Cody, howdy, superstar, a member for 5 months. That's awesome. Have you ever considered a business coach? Any suggestions? Thanks. So whenever I think of coaches, I think, why does Serena Williams still have a coach? Right? There's no level of you are so successful, you don't need to be talking to somebody who can make you better. But it's really hard to find a coach or a mentor who can actually be beneficial. My first real estate agent I looked at as a mentor and a coach. We were friends for a long time. He has 30 rentals. He's very successful. He was running a real estate agency, had several agents working for him. He has since retired. And had I listened to him, had I went, okay, you know what you're doing. You have decades of experience. Had I gotten the offers accepted that he had me making, I'd be bankrupt. Because he had never invested in small multifamily and he had never used mortgages, right? He had invested in a completely different way than I was. The way you calculate cash on cash return, the way yield works when you have debt, like all of these strategies in an asset class he wasn't familiar with. Luckily, I didn't get those offers accepted. And then I was educated and I figured out how this actually works. And Michael Zuber and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord and a couple of other people have talked about, the importance of having a mentor or a coach. And I think it's good. I wonder if I could share this. I think I've associated this with real estate before, but this was something my sister told me a long time ago. My sister passed away, domestic violence in like the 90s. So it was a long time ago, but this was something she said that really stuck with me. She said, the inside of your head is a circle. It's round. Your thoughts are always going to spin until you find somebody else to bounce those thoughts off of. And then they're not going to spin in a circle anymore. So I don't think it's as important to have a coach as to have somebody else who's also doing what you're trying to do, right? So if you're trying to develop better body tone or, better finances or a better work relationship or a better marriage, find somebody who's also got something like that going on in their life and then bounce your thoughts off of them. But I myself have not thought of a real estate coach or that because, so let's say hypothetically, just hypothetically, I put together a program where I was a coach. And I could say you could pay for an hour of time. And right now it's $5,000 for an hour, or I can give an hour away during my live stream sometimes, which I have occasionally done, right? So we get that hour, we go through your stuff. I wouldn't call me a coach in that situation. I would say the person that I'm talking to, their head is round and all their thoughts are spinning. Yield, cash flow, market, strategy, all the things are just not sure. And then we sit down and we talk. And now I've invested to reach financial freedom. I don't have their resources. I don't have their ultimate goals. I don't know their market, but I can get their thoughts to bounce back and forth between us instead of just spinning in their head. To me, that might be worth it. So I talk with the lumberjack, and I talk with Matt, and I talk with Mike and Zuber, Millennial Mike, and I've talked with Beth. I have ideas that go back and forth off other investors, but I don't look at them as a coach. Matt and Zuber both told me, now two successful investors with decades more experience than me said in 2020, end of 2020, you have a paid off house. Interest rates are around 3%. You should do a 50% loan to value mortgage on that debt, on that asset, so that you have money to put into your next great deal. If they were mentors, I would have sat back and said, they know more than me, they're more successful than me, this makes sense, and I would have done it. But they don't have my goals, my resources, my assets, and my perspective that, yes, that does make sense. If my goal was to add more units, which it wasn't. It still isn't. I'm going to add more units. The cash is piling up. It's got to go somewhere, right? I have a theory that I'm going to be explaining next week. I don't want to talk about it now too much because the theory is going to come out at the Christian and Cody multifamily strategy. I have a theory that actually explains. So here's the Cliff Notes version. This is the reason some people, so I don't want to say you, because that makes me think I'm talking to you, but some people are stuck in their job and why they're not going to reach financial freedom. I have an actual paradox that explains why. And so I'm going to talk about that this weekend at the Christian and Cody multifamily strategy for the first time, probably on their channel, because I think they live stream it when we talk. And then next week, I'm going to make a video covering this paradox, which is why some people aren't going to reach financial freedom and they're going to be stuck in a job. But I don't want what Lumberjack and Mike want. Their advice made sense from somebody that's doing what they do. They were great to talk to bounce my thoughts off of, because if anybody ever saw the video where I had them do a portfolio deep dive with me, it's almost like I really built this channel just so I can get around other investors and say, hey, here's my thoughts. Should I retire? Right? If you're working a job and I loved my job, right? But you have passive income coming in, and it's more than it takes, and it's an exponent of more than what it takes for you to live your life. At what point do you retire, right? Well, I don't want to make the decision on my own, and I don't want a mentor telling me, yep, this is when you do it, because now I have somebody to blame. I wanted somebody's opinion so I can get my thoughts bounced off of them. So Cody or Chris, Cody. No, I haven't looked at having a coach. But I definitely think there's a benefit to talking to somebody about what your process is. Tom has done it. Pat, he's not here tonight, but he's done it. There's a couple other people where we had the hour. Tom, in the chat, was it a waste of your time? Or in that hour, did we talk things through so that you kind of had an idea of what your next step was? I didn't go at the end go, okay, here's what you need to do. So if you're looking at paying, let's say it wasn't $5,000, and let's say it was a real amount, and you paid for that hour. At the end of the hour, I'm not going to go, okay, here's your things. This is exactly what I would do, right? It's a conversation to say, with your assets, your resources, your timeline, your goals, if I was in your position, here are my suggestions, but it can't be, here's what you do. I hope that answers that one. I'm hoping to get some accountability for taking more action. That's a good reason too. What was the statistic? I don't remember it. I hate my memory. But it was something like if you have a wish, you're not likely to get it. If you make it a goal, you're more likely to get it. If you write it down, you're more likely to achieve the goal. But if you tell somebody about the goal, you're even more likely to do it. So that accountability is huge too. Yeah, I agree. For anyone who has lost a job, read Who Moved My Cheese? Thank you, Keith. I think that's one Millennial Mike often suggests. And I have 15 minutes left, so if you have any questions, this is a good time to get them in. Let's see if I got it here. Bolo. Howdy. Hi, Dion. What's your take on David Green saying house hack and putting the least you can? If I do that here in South Florida, I think that's what that is, a year later and rent it out, it would still be an alligator. So, right, you don't want to invest where it's going to be an alligator. There's a couple different aspects to house hacking. One is, does it reduce how much you're paying for housing when you live there? Two, it's you get the property with lower down payment, better interest rate. I don't suggest buying an alligator even once you're moved out. No. And he's in the Bay Area doing it, so that it's possible. I don't know his exact numbers, but it's possible David Green could be buying alligators too. But 5-10 years, and if it's only a small part of your portfolio, then things change. There are people who make appreciation plays. I bought a property that, not me. So I can't do this because at some point I'm going to put these on in podcast land and you can't see video. So air quotes don't count. But so I'm speaking from someone else's perspective. I'm going to buy a property and lose money every month, but it's going to gain in so much appreciation that when I sell it, I'm going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. There are people who do that, right? So there are other investors that go, wow, Pete, you can make an appreciation play. So I'm going to invest for appreciation instead of cash flow. That's not what they're doing. It's an investor who has a large portfolio that generates a lot of cash flow. And then they take a small percentage of it and they gamble on appreciation. Just like Michael Zuber took, it was somewhere between 1% and 5% of his net worth and bought some crypto. He doesn't care if it makes money. He doesn't care if it's gone tomorrow. It was enough that he can gamble with to say, I'm trying that, I'm experiencing that, I have hedged my bets with that. And that's how I look at an appreciation play or buying an alligator, is if you have a massive portfolio. There are people who buy their house, they're all alligators. Right? I mean, think about the people who are never going to rent it out. They're just going to live there. They don't rent out rooms. They're paying every month for their house. Literally every owner-occupied house that is not generating income is an alligator. It is negative cash flow every month. So is that a bad thing? No. Right? Can you call it an asset? Yes, but you're wrong. So if you're going to house hack, maybe draw that circle around the expensive area and go out until you find that equilibrium between rates, prices and rents, where it might not be an alligator when you move out. And with the massive influx to Florida, it's really a volatile market to know where that's going to make the most sense. So I don't endorse buying an alligator unless you have a huge portfolio and you're going to be losing money every month anyway on your where you live, but you can lose less money by house hacking. That's still an improvement. Thank you. All-nighter hider. Deferred gratification is very gratifying. Are you saying how long it takes can make a difference? Oliver, howdy. Glad to make it on today. Thank you. Glad you're here too. Mark, financial firefighter. Aloha. Howdy. Nice. Dividend Dave, I will be very open and transparent with him. Yeah, that's the part that matters to me. K3, howdy. Love joining lives. You're usually a part of Futureland. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here too. I think I've explained it a few times on why I really like the live streams. And I actually said it with Zuber today, because Zuber's got an event coming up where you can be a part of 100 people on Zoom where you can ask questions and interact with him. There are people watching this video right now. So about 20% of the people who watch my content are subscribers. So 80% are returning viewers that watch the content, but have never hit the subscribe button. So what's that about? Then about 1/10. So usually if I get 1,000 views, I get 100 likes. So 1/10 of the people will hit the like button. But there are people who will never hit the like button. They will never hit subscribe. They will never leave a comment. They will probably never read the comments, but they watch. They're going to learn. Now think about it. They're here at a live event. They're not going to ask a question, but they learn because somebody else, like K3, like I see you have a question here. They didn't know they needed to ask this question. That to me is the power, one of the powers of the live streams. What's the furthest out you would consider self-managing rentals? Hey Siri, how far away is Portugal?
I'm not sure how far away Portugal is by car, but it's about 5,227 miles as the crow flies.
That was what I was considering, K3. 5,200 miles. So if you're going to start a portfolio and you don't have systems in place, I would have property management if it was more than an hour and a half away. I think if you drive an hour and a half, do anything at the property, and then drive an hour and a half back, it's going to kill a day every time you have to do it. So hour and a half is my limit. If you own properties in an area, like my brother, he has properties in Kern County, California, so just north of LA, next to two towns that were also voted just as bad as Gary, Indiana. He self-manages. It also gives him a reason to go to California and visit our other family, which that's why I don't want to own properties there. But he self-manages in two different states because he has lived in both areas and has the systems in place, has the handyman in place. I'm more likely to, now that I have Hemlane, and I am an affiliate with Hemlane. So if you use them, you can get a discount if you use the code Dion. So when I talk positively about them, it's because I'm slowly transitioning my properties, not the way you just thought of that word, but my properties onto that platform. If 3 out of 16, I'm not taking my old tenants, and even though some of them are in their 20s, that they're still my old tenants because I've had them for a while. And I'm not saying you now have to change what you did and get on my platform, but every time I have a tenant turnover going forward or buy a property, they're going to be on the Hemlane platform because of the 3-tiered system. If I need a handyman to go through a portal because I'm in a country where I don't have, for some reason, cell service, which I don't think that's going to happen, or I need to have a leasing agent go and do tours or sign a lease, then I have that option with Hemlane. I'm more likely to do it then. So I've lived here. I've self-managed these properties. I'm comfortable to then move. I was looking at Portugal until I found out they just changed the Golden Visa program. So now I'm not sure if I want to be doing that or not. But I would still continue to self-manage because I have the systems in place. I have multiple handymen. I have local RE groups where if my handyman stopped working, I can go to the next one, develop a distance relationship with that person so that they can handle those things. I use the Thumbtack app. I'm trying to think, outside of YouTube, the last time I've had to go to a rental property for something I've done that I could have had someone else do, and I can't in 5 years think of a reason why I had to go and do something at a property. I've gone and done a couple of things. There was one I went and painted the ceiling after having a light replaced. I'm not sure why I did it. I think it was literally had nothing to do that whole week. And I was like, I can give one thing this whole week, have something to do. So that's my thought on how far I would go. If you have systems in place, the world is your oyster. If you don't have systems and you need to develop them, I'd want to be within an hour and a half. Outside of an hour and a half, I would want a property manager, and I would use Millennium Mike's strategy for that. Thank you. Tom, when you are on the East Coast, you are invited to stay at my house. And since you don't like free, you can pay $1. Nice. Works for me. When am I going to the East Coast? I was thinking of, me and my brother were thinking of going to Florida again and scuba diving in the Devil's Cave. It's a underground scuba diving in Florida. And then Christine sent me a picture of it, of where it's at. So they actually lower you in through with like a tripod into it. So I'll be on the East Coast for that. Oliver, howdy. I know you add floodlights, but what's your opinion on adding smart bulbs, Wi-Fi, front door and back door, and control lighting and schedule for your duplex properties? Not something I do. I think if you were going to ever have one empty for a while, it probably couldn't hurt. But I've never had a property empty. And the longest period I've ever had a tenant turnover take was 4 days. I had 4 days to get everything done to get a tenant in and out. And so if I had one, it was going to be empty for a few months. I have a neighbor that's doing a rehab on a tenant where they did an eviction. And I think they're on the 3rd month of the rehab. And I'm like, you need a new crew. Yeesh. But then I might think about it to make it look like there was someone living there. But I don't have anything Wi-Fi at any of the properties, even the locks. I don't like Wi-Fi locks. If I was going to do short-term rentals, possibly midterm rentals, I would do that because I wouldn't have to go and let people in or out. I do coded locks, Schlag coded locks, link in the description below. It's in every one of my videos. Those are the locks that I use because since it's not Wi-Fi, the batteries, I have the batteries at my unit. I'm going on 3rd year to see how long the battery lasts. Same battery. Don't do that unless you have more than one door with the coded locks. And I have it in my leases that my tenants will replace the batteries every year. So I have not in a decade had a tenant lockout, not ever once. It's not really possible at my properties. Yeah. So short-term rentals and possibly mid-term rentals would completely change that. And if I had extended periods of time where properties were empty, then it would change my opinion on that. But since I don't do those, not so much. Howdy, Anna. Hope you're doing well. Do you see you in 35 minutes? I have 5 minutes left and I have to wrap this up. Make sure I'm not missing any super chats before I get out of here, because that would suck. There was one time when somebody sent one like as I was hitting the close button. I felt bad. I'll make sure I'm not missing here. Tom, I have my college degree in criminal justice, but I drive trucks. Criminal sociology, and I drove trucks. Julie Anderson, howdy. What are your investment plans for this year? Thank you for asking that. Because of the paradox that I'm going to explain this weekend, I'm going to buy another. So wow, I've got some options. I haven't narrowed it down yet. It's really going to come down to the two things. There are two things that tell you when to buy a property. It's not the market. It's not interest rate. It's not prices. It's none of that. It's, are you ready? Right? Is there something bizarre or weird going on in your life that would stop you from being able to focus and buy the right deal and actually handle the transaction right? So the D's: death, divorce, right? Or birth in the family. There's a D there, something. There was three. Anything else going on? Are you being sued? Did you change your jobs? Something that would stop you. Or if none of that's going on and you're ready. And the second thing is, did you find the right deal? Did you find a great deal? So for me, since I'm currently house hacking and I'm thinking of house hacking again to add another fourplex, I'm thinking of buying all cash for a duplex. I'm thinking of paying all cash to do a BRRRR where I can refinance my money out or leave it in, depending on what I feel like at the end of the rehab, and not worry about a timeline with hard money. I have thought of buying a forever home. So I have searches set up for all of those. And then I was actually thinking of Portugal for the forever home and going there. But like I said, they changed the golden visa program. I think it was like 15, 20 years ago, right around the 2008 crash. The housing was so bad in Portugal, they opened up this golden visa program where if you bought there, foreign investors could buy there. If you owned for 5 years, you can get a visa and have the EU access with that. So it made sense. So I don't need the passport. That's not the deal breaker. It's, can foreign investors still invest in Portugal? So my brother and I are going to go to Portugal for a month and see how the laws work, talk to some of the people there, look at what the investing is like, possibly still buy. And so what's going to determine how I invest the rest of this year, Julie, is I'm ready. I have any of the D's going on. Oh, it was dating. Death, divorce, or dating. If you're doing any of those, don't buy something. And if I find the right deal. So I have the search set up for the BRRRR. I have the search set up for the small multifamily, the search set up for the forever home. And I'm going to learn about Portugal. So which one pops up first is going to be the next investment for this year. And probably the only one. I'm not like Zuber or the Lumberjack where they're so big they don't talk about their numbers because it would be disheartening. I'm still small enough to where I can talk about numbers, and this is a goal I'm trying to get people to. So doing everything I want to do and doing all the scuba and the traveling and the making the cruises and everything that I'm going to be doing, I'm still saving like 10 grand a month, 10 to 15, somewhere in there, that piles up to buy the next property. My goal is to get all of the people watching to the income snowball where that's the problem you have. You do everything you want to do. You goof off as much as you want. You don't have to work. And then you have to figure out what to do with the money that's left over. And then I'm probably going to be wrapping up. Let me look through really quick. Thank you, T. Adams. All night hider. I see the real estate investing Avengers as mutual coaches making each other better. Yes. Matt says it often, iron sharpens iron. So if part of it is come to these lives, go to all of, as many as you can, mine, Matt's, Mike's, Zuber's, and just listening to this kind of stuff. That's kind of a thing. Ask questions, get the stuff bounced back and forth. If you take one of those things, like if you sign up for Matt's course and you get 3 hours of his time, that I wouldn't look at that as a coach. Like he's not going to come and sit with you and be like a therapist, but in that amount of time, he can really get your thoughts in an order instead of spinning in circles. John Roberts, howdy from Dallas. Sounds like a real place. I'm totally focused on buying a duplex since I began watching here. My goal is within 12 to 18 months. That's awesome. I would also encourage you, before I wrap this up tonight, I think that might be it for tonight, is look at houses with ADUs. And if you've been watching for a while, John, you're probably aware of what I'm about to say. But searching for a house with an ADU is kind of nuanced, right? We can't control what the listing agent is going to call them. You can look for small multifamily. That's what most investors are looking for. You look at regular houses and just hope to find some that has 2 properties on it, and read the listings. But look for ADU, DADU, JADU, accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, granny flat, mother-in-law house. Like, what are all the things that they might call this? Because the numbers work just like a duplex, but you eliminate competition. Home buyers don't want to have a tenant. And most investors look at small multifamily, duplex, triplex, fourplex. They forget the asset class and all of the things that an ADU property can be called. So you lose both forms of competition. And it qualifies for true single family lending. So lending is tiered. You have owner-occupied, single family gets the best rate. House with an ADU is the same. It's no different. Then you have non-owner-occupied, single family goes up about 0.5 point on your interest rate, and your down payment can change. Then you have small multifamily, duplex, triplex, fourplex, owner-occupied, best interest rate, down payment options. But it's 0.5 point higher than owner-occupied single family. And then if you don't occupy small multifamily, it's 0.5 point higher because it's small multifamily, and then 0.5 point higher because you're not living there. And the 0.5 point is a rough average. Each lender might be a little more, a little less, but that's kind of the bumps that they do. Do you live there? Lowest. Do you not live there? A little higher. Single family? A little higher. Do you live there? Not as high. Do you not live there? A little higher than that, right? So I would also add that to it. Yes, my Siri is Australian. Nice. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for that. If there's any questions here, I'm sorry if I didn't get to them. I hope you guys have a week full of awesome. If there's anybody here that's going to the Tacoma FI meetup, it's a Facebook group, Tacoma FI. We meet once a month, second Tuesday. I'm going to be heading there. Looking forward to seeing anybody who shows up at the Christian and Cody Multifamily Strategies event that is this weekend, the 18th. And then there's going to be a poker game afterwards. Some great presenters. Some of the BiggerPockets people are going to be there. People I've worked with as a teaching assistant for months or years and I've never met, get to see. So it's awesome. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.